Hey everyone, it's Jokes and welcome to my channel. You've seen me on Purple Kyogre's channel plenty of times before in the past, and since February in fact, but I think it's time that I started my own channel, so we got some battles for you here today. We starting off with Ice Savager. He starts off with Cresselia. I start off with Dusknoir. He blocks the first Dark Pulse, and he hits me with a Moonblast, which I block because I know I can get to another Dark Pulse. Charge up extra energy, then I hit the Cresselia with a Dark Pulse, which he decides to invest double shields in. So I go for another Dark Pulse to see if I can KO the Cresselia, which it actually doesn't, leaves it with 1 HP as my Dusclops fall. So thinking about what I want to come in with next, I come in with Gardevoir, and I shield this Moonblast from the Cresselia, and I just feint it down with Charm. And waiting to see what he comes in with next. So he comes in with Mawile, so I switch into Poliwrath, and then he counter switches into Primeape. So Primeape is more spammier than Poliwrath, and I know that with shields down, Hydro Pump was going to KO, so I go for the Hydro Pump to KO the Primeape. As it does. So he comes back in with Mawile, and I go for the Power Up Punch, because I know I couldn't get to another Hydro Pump, and I just wanted to do as much damage as I could. So he hits me with a charge move here. It had to be an Iron Head, which KOs Poliwrath, but because his Mawile is so low, I'm just able to feint down with Charm. And that is the end of the first battle. So moving on to the second battle, we lead Steelix, he leads Gallade. So kind of an interesting matchup. He does have close combat that I have to watch out for. But he pulls a switch into Primeape, and I switch into my own Gallade. Now, I know that Gallade can take whatever Primeape can throw at it, so I take that move and feint it down with Confusion. And I have a load of energy ready for whatever he comes in with next. So he comes in with Gallade, I go for the Leaf Blade, which he shields, but my Gallade feints with a loaded energy in the back, so I was not able to get off the second Leaf Blade. So I come in with Steelix, and I pray that it's a Leaf Blade, as it is. And so I charge up a bit of extra energy, and I fire off a Crunch, which he shields. Then I charge up even more extra energy and fire off another Crunch, which doesn't knock out the Gallade, but I feint it down with Dragon Tail. And then he comes in with Gardevoir, and I'm trying to get to the Earthquake, but I'm just not able to. And here comes my Poliwrath, and it's just game over. I'm going to die with 2 shields left. So, kind of an embarrassing loss, but it happens. So, moving on to the next battle. I lead Poliwrath, he leads Steelix, so very favorable matchup. I pull up the switch menu, expecting him to switch, as he does, into Cresselia, so I counter switch into Dusknoir. Now, this is from the other day, so I don't have Ominous Wind on it, because I have no TMs. So I hit the Cresselia with a Dark Pulse, he shields. So I block this particular Moonblast, and trying to get to a Dark Pulse as I do, to see if he invests both shields or does damage to Cresselia, which he lets go through. And then he hits me with another move just before I'm able to KO his Cresselia. So I shield that, and I feint his Cresselia down with the Hex. Now, whatever comes in is going to get hit with a Dark Pulse because I don't have enough health to get to a Psychic, and it happens to be Steelix, so better go for a Dark Pulse anyway. So I switch into Poliwrath, which probably was a mistake looking back on it, because I should have just let the Dusclops go down. But he switches into Medicham, and is just going to wreck my Poliwrath. So I go for the Hydro Pump, hoping and praying that he doesn't shield, and he does not shield, which KOs the Medicham. And he pulls back in Steelix, and I hit it with a Power Up Punch, which he shields, but then he actually gets off his Crunch to KO my Poliwrath. But because his Steelix is so low, I come in with my own Steelix and feint it down with Dragon Tail. So moving on to another opponent, Purple Kyogre. You already know who he is. So he leads in with Drifblim, I leave in with Medicham, so really unfavorable matchup for me, but I go for the power-up punch to start boosting my counters, and then I switch into Empoleon, which doing a lot of damage with that waterfall. So he switches into Poliwrath, and he gets off a power-up punch. So I decided not to shield because I knew that whatever it was, I can still get to my charge move. So I get off the Flash Cannon, which Poliwrath does resist, as you see there, but we actually puts up a fight before going down. So I come in with Medicham. He hits me with an Ice Punch, which I don't shield, and then his Poliwrath faints right after. So we both had 2 shields left, and seeing what he comes in with. He comes in with the Lowland Marowak, so this is really not a good situation for me. So I go for the Ice Punch. I honestly don't know why I did. I just clicked on a move, and then I switch into my own Lowland Marowak. Now it's a mind game. So he gets off a Shadow Ball, blasts me. I thought it was a Bone Club, and it's just game over at that point. Had I shielded, I don't know, maybe he would have come out, but I doubt it because he still had 2 shields left. So we get blasted in that game, and now we move on to the next one. So I lead with Drifblim, he leads off with that shiny Steelix. So interesting matchup. He does have that crunch, but I know that Drifblim can take a crunch. So I go for the Shadow Ball, hoping he didn't get an Ominous Wind and not shield. That's what happens because it does a lot of damage to it. So he gets off a crunch, and so I switch into Medicham, and he switches into Alolan Marowak. So I go for the power-up punch to try and do whatever I can against this Marowak, even though it resists all its moves. Then I go for the Ice Punch, which he takes it again. So he gets off his move, which happens to be a Shadow Ball. I was going to let the Medicham go down anyway because there's really no point in me keeping it in there. So I think about what I come in. I come with Bastiodon because I know I can farm down the Alolan Marowak. So he gets off his move, which happens to be a Shadow Ball, so doing an okay amount of damage. So he farmed down the Marowak, and I have a Stone Edge and a Flamethrower ready to go for whatever comes in. So I go with the Flamethrower. It happens to be Steelix, so good thing I clicked on Flamethrower. So he shields, and then we just sit there, and he gets off his charge move, which happens to be an Earthquake, which kind of shocked me, honestly, and I just come in with Drifblim, but I was afraid that he'd get to another crunch before I was able to faint down, so I go for the Ominous Wind, which KOs a Steelix, and he brings his own Drifblim in, so we each have a shield left. So he gets to his move first, which happens to be an Ominous Wind, which I shield, and then I get off my own Ominous Wind, which he shields as well, but I get a buff. So I go for the Ominous Wind, and hope that it should KO as it does. So the buff definitely saved me that round there. As we move on to the next battle with Purple Kyogre. So I lead Alolan Marowak, he leads Drifblim, so Bone Club won't touch Drifblim at all, so I had to go for the Shadow Ball, although I could shield bait with it. So he goes for the Ominous Wind, which I do shield, and I charge up extra energy, and I do go for the Shadow Ball. And he does shield it, and then I charge up trying to get to the Shadow Ball, but I'm not able to get there, so I just let this move go through whatever it is, Ominous Wind, which doesn't KO, and I get to another Shadow Ball, which does KO the Drifblim, so I just survived just barely enough to maintain switch advantage. So he brings in his Alolan Marowak, and I bring in Empoleon. So Empoleon does very well with Alolan Marowak, although Bone Club is super effective to it. But because Bone Club is so weak, I can take that pretty easily. So he switches into Poliwrath, and I switch into Medicham. So he hits me with a power-up punch, which I take because Medicham can take all Poliwrath's moves. And I get off my own power-up punch. And I'm just going to town with counter. He gets off another move, but even if it was an Ice Punch, I could take it, which it is. So I'd faint down with counter. I have a power-up punch ready to go for the Alolan Marowak, which won't do much, as you guys know, but he shields it anyway, and I get to another one. And then I switch into Empoleon, and he hits me. I have a shield left, so I can block whatever. It happens to be a Bone Club, and I'm able to just faint down with Waterfall. Flash Cannon is resisted, but at that range, it would have KO'd anyway, so As we move into the next battle with Purple Kyogre himself. And so we lead Drifblim, he leads Poliwrath, so favorable matchup. Ice Punch doesn't do too much to Drifblim, although you do have to watch out for a boosted one. So he hits me with an Ice Punch there, as you can see. Does a decent amount, but not enough to really do much. So he's going to town with these bubbles. He gets to another move, so I end up shielding it, even if it was a power-up punch, which it happens to be. And I switch into my Medicham, and he counter switches into Drifblim. So I go for the power-up punch, which he does not block. And so he gets off his move, which happens to be an Ominous Wind. But I was going to let the Medicham go down either way. But I'm able to survive and get off this Ice Punch, which will do a lot of damage, as you can see, to Drifblim. So he ends up fating me down with Hex, and I have two ghosts left, so I have to be careful which I bring in. So I bring in Drifblim, and I shield that because I had an Ominous Wind ready. I was hoping I could get it off before him, but that wasn't the case. So I get off my Ominous Wind, and I switch into Alolan Marowak, trying to feint him down with Hex before he can get off another move, which ends up happening. So I have a lot of energy left with the Alolan Marowak. So he brings in Steelix, which I know Bone Club, even though it's super effective, does practically nothing to Steelix. So I get off a Shadow Ball, which does, almost half. So he gets off his move, which is a Crunch, which I do survive, and he switches into Poliwrath, which actually feints my Alolan Marowak before I could get off a charge move. And then he hits me with Ice Punch to KO my Drifblim. So, interesting that his Poliwrath was able to come in and feint me down with Bubble, but as we move to the next one, I lead Haunter, he leads with Empoleon. Now, mine is a Legacy with Shadow Ball, so I charge up, not enough to a Shadow Ball, and then I get off a Shadow Punch, which he does not block, and then I switch into Drifblim, just farming up energy, as Waterfall is just chunking away at my health. So he gets off his Blizzard, which I end up shielding, and I have a load of energy with Drifblim. So whatever comes in is going to eat this charge move, which happens to be an Ominous Wind, which he shields. And because I built up enough energy, I go for the Shadow Ball, which he shields as well. So maybe I should have gone for the Ominous Wind, but it really doesn't make a difference because he comes in with... So I come back in with Haunter to waste the energy that he has on Drifblim. And then I come back in with Bastiodon just to take all this, to farm down his Drifblim. So he hits me with a Shadow Ball, does a decent amount of damage. He brings in a Alolan Marowak, which is actually favorable for Bastiodon because we do have that Stone Edge. So we get off the Stone Edge, KOs the Alolan Marowak, and then he brings back in Drifblim, which I am able just to feint down after I shield this move, to feint down his Drifblim with Smackdown. So another good game, you guys already know that. As we move into another battle. So we both lead a Alolan Marowak mirror match, and I don't generally like this. He does lag there quite a bit, actually. So I just keep on going to see if he is actually attacking. Now my phone actually does not pick up sometimes, and he could be attacking me for all I know. So he gets off his move, which I shield. It happens to be a Shadow Ball. And so I bait with Bone Club, which he doesn't take the bait, but I get off another Bone Club because I charged up energy for it. And then I hit it, knock out the Alolan Marowak. So he brings in his Empoleon, which is chunking away because Waterfall is super effective to Alolan Marowak. So I get off a Bone Club, which he shields, and because I had the energy for another Bone Club, but I was not able to get it off as the Waterfall damage went through. And I bring in my Medicham, which is super good against Empoleon, and he brings in his Poliwrath, which Medicham is also good against. So I get off a Power-Up Punch, he does not shield, and just go into town with these counters. I get off another Power-Up Punch, which I can only get a grade on because the fighting one is kind of difficult. So I KO the Poliwrath, and I come back in with Empoleon and feint it down with counters. So, and that's the last battle. That'll be the end of the video, and thank you guys very much for tuning in today.